What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be explaining every American quirk that's appeared in My Hero Academia. Despite the series rarely ever leaving Japan, the US has still been referred to as the home of heroes by Horikoshi himself in Volume 14, and by All for One in one of the more recent chapters. The reason for this is that America was the first country to introduce an official hero licensing system, which obviously is a system that every other country adopted over the following decades. Last year I made a video breaking down the full history surrounding that if you're interested, but for this video today, we're going to focus on the quirks instead of everything else. Before we get into it though, don't forget to smash that sub button if you're new to the channel, and drop a like if you want to see future content like this. Also, I want to thank Surfshark for sponsoring this video, which in my personal experience is the best VPN for protecting yourself online. If you're someone like me who occasionally uses public Wi-Fi or stumbles across websites that might not be so secure, Surfshark will keep your data safe by encrypting everything sent between your devices in the internet. For just one subscription, you can stay protected on unlimited devices, including phones, tablets, computers, and even consoles, and this is one of the many reasons why experts rate Surfshark as the best VPN for security. Another great benefit is that by connecting to one of their 3,000 servers worldwide, you can change your IP address and access content not usually available in your country. For me, this meant connecting to Netflix US to watch Death Note, and connecting to Netflix Australia to watch the finale of Rick and Morty the day it came out, but of course the possibilities are endless. If any of this interests you, then right now you can go to surfshark.deal/turtlequirk to get 83% off a 2-year plan, which works out to just $2.21 a month. On top of that, there's a 30-day full money-back guarantee, so even if you're not quite sure, just click the link in the description and use code TurtleQuirk to try out the service for 30 days to see if it's for you. Okay, so the first power on this list belongs to Star and Stripe, who was introduced as the #1 American hero, and unlike Midoriya, this is someone who looks like they could actually be All Might's secret love child. In chapter 330, the name of her quirk was revealed to be New Order, and it gives her the potential to rewrite reality by touching something and then calling out its name. Once the correct name has been said, Star can make up a rule of her choice that the target has to follow, with an example being how she touched the air itself and made a rule that the atmosphere would disappear 100 meters ahead. By saying those words, her quirk caused the air to instantly vanish in the area she specified, creating a vacuum where Shigaraki wasn't able to breathe. Another instance of New Order is how she stopped this deadly laser beam by saying the words "this laser is holdable," and you can see how the laser then started to unnaturally curve into a ball of energy rather than blasting into her like it normally would have done. Considering those examples, I think it's fair to say this quirk is the closest thing to genuine magical powers we've seen in the series, since it's as if, Star is casting a spell on her target that makes impossible things happen. Her ability also works on living things as well, proven by the fact that she has a rule in herself that constantly gives her super strength. And although that strength isn't on All Might's level, it's enough for her to go toe-to-toe with Super Shigaraki, which by default makes her one of the strongest people on the planet. She stated in the manga that this rule about strength is always active, implying that there isn't a time limit for how long the effect of New Order will last, but instead it's down to her to decide when the rules turn off. That brings us to the biggest downside of Star's power, which is that she can only make new rules for 2 things at a time, meaning if she wants to create a third rule, she first has to turn off one of the existing rules that are already in place. We saw this weakness demonstrated during her fight with Shigaraki, because in order to make the laser holdable while having super strength at the same time, the other rules she made about the air had to be turned off. A different drawback is that the power only works on people when she knows their true, full legal name, I guess. And if we use a quick example, I guess Darby, we didn't know his full name for the first 5 seasons of My Hero Academia, so if she had ever encountered him during that time, she wouldn't have been able to use New Order directly against him. Overall, New Order is easily one of the most elaborate abilities Horikoshi has come up with, and I feel like he was heavily inspired by Jujutsu Kaisen when he made this, since the nature of it seems a lot like a curse technique. Given that he's friends with the author of Jujutsu Kaisen in real life, I guess it's theoretically possible that they might have, come up with this idea together or spoken about it. Obviously we don't know that, but it would be pretty cool if that turned out to be the case. One interesting thing about Star and Stripe is that her origin can be traced back to the Two Heroes movie, when her entire family was saved by young All Might while he was doing hero stuff in California. This was the moment that solidified him as her role model, and it's why she tried to emulate him in both her design and personality. However, compared to All Might, she's way more casual when it comes to people around her being killed. Anyway, the fact this scene in Two Heroes is now confirmed to be canon, it got me wondering, what kind of overpowered quirk do you think her sister has? Cause being siblings, you'd imagine it would at least be similar to Star herself. Next up on this list we have Christopher Skyline, aka Captain Celebrity, who was the former top hero in the US before his license got revoked due to a number of different lawsuits. While he did eventually get the license back many months later, it was never stated where he ended up on the rankings after this, but obviously, he lost his #1 position. Just like Star and Stripe, his quirk has a lot of layers to it, so I guess the first thing to mention is that he has an invisible barrier covering his body at all times that protects him from physical attacks and extreme temperatures. The barrier has been shown to be incredibly sturdy on a few different occasions, like the time he withstood multiple explosions directly to his body while holding up the Tokyo Sky Egg with his bare hands. By touching other people, the barrier can also be extended to them, but the drawback is that the more people Captain Celebrity decides to protect, the less effective the barrier is at protecting him. Additionally, during chapter 53 of Vigilantes, he showed that it's possible to transfer 100% of the barrier to another person if he wants to, as long as he maintains physical contact. Besides that, his flight quirk gives him the ability to fly around at ridiculously fast speeds, which is a totally separate thing from the barrier, as he specified that the barrier around his body is not what propels him to fly. In addition to flight, he has super strength that's probably equal if not greater than Star and Stripes, with his feats including the incident I mentioned earlier when he held up the Sky Egg, as well as another time when he lifted up an entire cruise ship out of the water. Understandably, the other aspects of his quirk helped him to do these things, but you have to admit that it would still be impossible without an insane level of physical strength that surpasses virtually everyone else in this universe. If you want to know more about Captain Celebrity's backstory, then the link is in the description for another video I made explaining that, but for now let's move over to Pony Tsunatori from Class 1B. According to her character page, she's a Japanese-American student that came over from the US, which explains why Monoma was able to trick her into saying things in Japanese, because her understanding of the language isn't as advanced as the natural-born students. Pony's quirk is an interesting one called Horn Cannon, and as the name implies, it allows her to shoot out horns from her head that then immediately grow back. And when you look at it like that, it's not too dissimilar from Mineta's pop-off quirk, although obviously there are still some fundamental differences, but I guess the idea of something just coming out of your head and then growing back straight away, that much they have in common. Because of this, she can send out a flurry of horns to overwhelm her opponents, but the real advantage of this power comes from her telekinesis. Using her mind, Pony can control up to 4 horns simultaneously, enabling them to move through the air however she wants, with an example being how she glides through space using 2 horns like a hoverboard. They can take her super high into the sky, which effectively gives her the power of flight if she uses it correctly, and also it means the horns are a method of transportation as well as being weapons. We saw in the joint training arc how Pony's horns can manipulate people's movements by hooking onto them, with the drawback being that she starts feeling weighed down the more separate people she carries. On the flip side, when all 4 horns are used in unison instead of being separated, they can move with a lot more power, as shown when Ojiro got slammed into the jail cell, which was way quicker than when she was using 1 horn per person. In terms of other weaknesses, it should be said that the horns can be destroyed quite easily when up against a person who has a decent amount of brute strength, but that doesn't stop them from being super painful if they manage to stab into someone. Like most of Class 1B, we didn't properly get to see her quirk in action till Season 5 came around. However, she still lived up to her first name in the sports festival by galloping on all 4s in the background of the cavalry battle. To me, this type of movement raised a lot of similarities to Cow Lady, who is the next American hero on this list. While we have absolutely no idea where she places on the hero charts, what we do know is that she has a transformation quirk that massively increases her strength and durability and turns her into a cow that wears shades. When she's in this form, she runs on all 4s and becomes so tough that she brushed off a direct hit from a missile, and on top of that, the horns on her head are presumably good for ramming into things. These horns actually remain in place whether she's transformed or not, but regardless, we didn't really get to see that much of her quirk in action, because the villain team that she was fighting against ran away pretty quickly. These 2 bad guys have only ever been referred to as the LA villains, and back in All Might's younger days, they robbed a casino in California and were trying to make a run for it. Coincidentally, both of them happen to have transformation quirks as well, with the red one being able to turn his arms into rocket launchers, and the other guy transforming into a monster that looks like it belongs in Star Wars. The rocket launcher villain could shoot a maximum of 1 missile from each arm at the exact same time, and in his fight with All Might, he proved on 2 separate occasions that he could rapidly fire off a 3rd missile afterwards. These rockets packed a lot of power considering that only one of them destroyed an entire row of police cars, but as I said, Cow Lady was able to shrug them off pretty easily. It was these 2 LA villains that nearly killed Star and Stripe's family when she was a child, as the blue villain was inches away from landing on top of their car and crushing them in the process, but luckily David, Shield and All Might happened to be passing through on their way to a lecture. Because David is from California, his quirk also has a place on this video, even though it's objectively one of the worst I've ever seen. In the Team Up Mission side manga, his power was revealed to be Squirmy Fingers, which from the looks of it lets him bend his fingers as far back as they can go, and that's it. So honestly, this is one of the few quirks that I'm pretty sure is actually a thing somewhere in the real world, but in David's defense, Squirmy Fingers is quite useful for him given how much he works with his hands. Anyway, as I'm sure most of you know if you've watched the 2 Heroes movie, his daughter Melissa's shield ended up being quirkless, and one thing we learned from Team Up Missions was that she would watch videos of heroes on YouTube during her childhood. In particular, there was this guy who was ranked 35th on the American hero charts at the time, but sadly it wasn't said what his power actually was. Although judging from this image, I imagine it's something to do with strength, as most of the American heroes seem to have something to do with that. And also, his headband here reminded me a little bit of Magneto. So, who knows, maybe there's a little bit of magnetism plus strength combined or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised because these American heroes all seem to have layers to their quirks, more than just one simple thing. Putting that aside, in the background of this chapter we saw a few more quirks that Melissa observed in her childhood, including this trio of characters that had stretchy arms, triangle ears and a shark head, and her childhood friend who could breathe fire. I'm not trying to start a conspiracy theory here, but one other character we know who could breathe fire is Deku's dad, who's mysteriously been working abroad for all these years. So all I'm saying is there's a non-0% chance that this is Midoriya's half-brother. Finally, the last quirk from the US that we've seen is from Electoplant, who can generate and shoot out electricity, but I already spoke about this character a couple of weeks ago for my video about the best anime original quirks, so check that one out if you want to see my thoughts on who I think should be his new intern. With that said, thank you for watching this video on every quirk from the USA so far, and I'm pretty confident that a year from now, there'll be at least a couple more that we can add to this list. Till then, don't forget to smash that sub button, and until the next one, peace out.